Tea is made from a plant called Camellia sinensis, and this plant isn't native to the West. So, is there a substitute that could mimic it? In this series, I'm exploring how far we can push the art of local tea using the plants that grow around us. Today, I'm diving deep into how black tea is prepared and how we can use these techniques on our own local plants. So black tea is prepared in 4 simple steps. We're going to walk through them and then we're going to see how we can adapt each step to meet the needs of our local plant. This step is very easy. When we pick the leaf, we allow them to rest for a bit. This has 2 effects. One, reducing its water content, which will make bruising easier in the next step. And it creates a stress response in the leaves, which are still alive at this point, and it gives it a nice floral flavor. The leaves are rolled in a machine for about 1 hour. This brings the leaves juices to the surface and allow native enzymes to react with oxygen, which induces oxidation. It is pretty much the same as when you cut an apple. The rolled leaves are put in big piles and covered with a damp cloth. They're allowed to rest for about 6 to 8 hours to ensure proper oxidation. This is where the smell goes from grassy to extremely floral. Usually it's dried at 90 degrees Celsius until crisp. Well, can we transfer this technique into our own local plant? Would that create a similar black tea? Yes, and not completely. There is some slight changes we need to do. The best substitute to Camellia sinensis is fireweed leaves. It's a wild-growing plant already widely used in Russia to make a tea called Ivan chai. And this is the plant I used in many of my previous videos. But I know that this plant isn't the easiest to find, so I decided to go for another one. Hazel leaves. Why them? They're very much available in most of forests, and we know they have been used as medicine in the past, so they're pretty safe. Over the many experiments I did with hazel leaves, I realized that they do not have enough water in them. So our goal is to preserve that water inside of the leaves as much as possible, because if the leaves are too dry, they will not oxidize properly. I let them wilt a little bit, but just until the midrib can bend. That maybe was 1 to 2 hours, not more than this. We can't really bruise them like tea leaves or fireweed leaves, because they don't have a good structure, so they will break. How can we allow the leaves juices to come to the surface then? Freezing. When you freeze the leaves, it creates little ice crystals. These form inside and between cells, which ruptures cell membranes. When thawed, the inner contour of the cell gets released and interacts with the outer environment. So the enzymes locked into the cells are now freed and allowed to react with oxygen, thus creating the oxidation we're looking for. I freeze them for a day, but you could just do overnight, that would be fine. I let them thaw in a closed environment. Why? Remember, we don't want to lose water content. We are working with very dry leaves, so we need to preserve as much water as possible. I create 3 piles of similar sized leaves. Then you kind of roll it from the edges and then from the center, and you use a rolling pin to bruise it even more. This way, the juices interact between each leaves. It actually works because some juice got released on board. Then I slice them really thin to give them a nice final shape and to provoke even more oxidation. Usually they're put in big piles, which can retain humidity in its core. When we're working with small batches at home, this is not convenient because it could lose too much humidity, and if there isn't enough humidity, then it will not oxidize properly. How do we work around that? We need to create a semi-closed environment. A classic Tupperware is usually fine. Close the Tupperware, humidity rests in, and there is enough oxygen here to allow for oxidation. But every now and then, during the 6 to 8 hours of oxidation, we're gonna open the lid to allow new oxygen in and to monitor the smell as it develops. At the beginning, the smell is weirdly spicy. It kind of smells like Maggi. And then with oxidation happening, it goes to a more pleasant and floral smell. After 8 hours, you just put it in the oven at 90 degrees and dry it. Since they're pretty dry leaves, well, this doesn't take much time. There seems to be a problem. The color is supposed to be much darker. I mean, it's black tea we're talking about. So I decided to compare it to another batch of hazel black tea I made a few months ago. Here you can see the difference between the old leaves and the young leaves. This is soft and you can feel the tannins. This one definitely gives black tea vibes, although it's not as dark as black tea. Let's zoom out for a second to understand what's really going on here. During spring and summer, plants invest their energy into growing leaves and producing fruit. That's when young leaves are soft and full of polyphenols and enzymes. But in autumn and winter, the plant shifts its focus. It pulls nutrients and sugars down into the roots to survive the cold. As a result, the leaves become tougher, drier, and much lower in polyphenol and enzymes. Now, softer leaves are easier to roll and bruise, and polyphenol and enzymes are exactly what drive oxidation. So it's no surprise that our autumn tea turned out weaker in color and flavor. So this teaches us the importance of making wild tea in the right season. But that doesn't mean we can't do anything with what we produced now. We need to go off track. First, we can steep it hotter and longer to pull out more flavor. And second, there's a trick we learned in the last video, roasting. By roasting the leaves, we can unlock deeper aromas and bring out the best of what's left, a method often used in making oolong teas. So here we achieve a kind of roasted hazel black tea. Now that it's roasted, it has that nice meaty roasty elements which complements the mouthfeel. So now this makes it a more complex and complete tea. Roasting the leaves in this case pushed the final product a little bit further, and now I can safely say that this tea stands on its own. But I think it would still be great to mix it with chamomile or thyme or mint, and it will be even better. But it is a great base which we can work with. If you understand the principle behind tea making, well, you can basically create an infinite amount of different teas. I'm currently creating a course to share all my experience and what I learned about tea making to help you go from any edible leaf to all the various kind of teas. You'll learn how to make this wild elderflower green tea or this puer style fireweed leaves that I have now aging in my closet. But if you just want to get started with wild tea, I created a free mini guide, link in the description. I tried this black tea process on various leaves already, so if you want to check this out, here's a playlist. Until next time, stay rooted.